Okay. Should I start?
Go for it. Take it away.
Ah, my clock still says 6:59. I'll hold my breath for a second.
It is 6:59. We can wait one more minute until it turns to 7.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Jan Pickrell, and I'm here as a Fairfax County Master Gardener intern to talk to you about how crop rotation or succession planting is important to you as a home backyard vegetable gardener. And why is my screen not going down? There we go. Okay, sorry. You may have heard both of these terms before, crop rotation and succession planting, but what do they mean? And another term you may have heard is relay planting, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And so are these practices exclusive to each other? When do these play a role in my garden? Why do I want to do this? And what tools do I need to do this? So, crop rotation is most commonly used with time periods expressed as year or season, very long time frames. The U.S. Department of Agriculture defines crop rotation as crops are changed season by season in a planned sequence. In contrast, succession planting and relay planting are expressed as activities within a single year's growing season. May not be the growing season of the plant, but of your area's growing season. An easy example to think of for the succession planning is when a cool season plant or spring crop like peas or lettuce is harvested, and then you put into the same place in the garden a plant that requires warmer temperatures, such as tomatoes, into the very same spot. And then once tomatoes, let's say the temperature gets cool enough that the tomatoes aren't producing very well anymore, like in September and October, you then might want to plant cooler crops there again, like turnips or beets. So what is relay planting? Relay planting is when you do a second planting before you harvest the first planting of the same crop. For example, for the home backyard gardener, I usually hear folks that may plant alternating rows of lettuce a couple weeks apart so that you basically extend your fresh salad season by eating one row of lettuce while the other row of lettuce is still maturing in your garden. That's called relay planting. Right now we're going to focus a bit more on succession planting, but also show you some tools that can help you with relay planting. So why do I want to do this type of planting? Which crop did I plant last year, last season? Which do I have in now, and what do I plant next? Why is that important? No matter what the size of your garden, no matter what crop you plant, it's going to use up nutrients from the soil. Different families of different plants use different nutrients and use nutrients at different rates. Different plants also attract different pests that use them as a food source. So growing the same family of plants in the same area repeatedly will deplete that same combination of nutrients faster than if you alternate different types of plants or rotate in different plant families that use a different nutrient set at a different rate. Similarly, plants of the same family often attract the same pests, which, after they find and munch on your crop, may lay their eggs next to where they think its baby's food source will be next. By planting the same family of plants, you have then fulfilled that insect parent's desire to provide for its offspring for the next generation. So What happens if we plan for our nutrients and we make sure that we are providing the right amount of nutrients for the crops that we want to plant, and we don't just perpetuate growing our plants for all of the bugs? Then we get healthier plants and higher yields. That's why you might want to pay attention to all of this. So, remedies, what do we need to do? For example, you might choose your next crop in the same season or a year apart or more from a different plant family. I have a chart about plant families, and I'll show that to you in a few minutes. That may help with minimizing completely digging up and putting in new manure or compost mid-season if you have a small little garden. You basically would plant one crop from one family, and then when it's done, you plant the next one. Some people in between, if they have space, might plant cover crops, which are called green manures, green because they're green for plants, manure for the organic matter that would enrich the soil. Examples most frequently cited as green manures are the legume family, or peas, which provide nitrogen back to the soil. So what else could you do if you're not rotating? You could do a lot of soil testing and amending your soil with fertilizer. Sometimes you can do that mid-season. Sometimes some folks wait till the end of the season. And then another topic that I'm not really going to talk about, but maybe that can be something for another week, is companion planting, which would be planting certain plants that would attract the bugs away from the one primary plant that you want. So I talked about plant families. Here is a listing of plant families and then what vegetables are in those families. You can see that, for an example, let's just pull out cool weather plants, and I planted lettuce when it was still cool outside. That's in the sunflower family, way at the bottom of this list. Well, we know once temperatures get up to like 90 degrees, a lot of our lettuce is just going to either bolt and come up all really leggy and have flowers at the top if we haven't eaten it already. And then what do? It's no time for lettuce again. So what's a different crop we could plant? We could then, a warm weather plant, we could be putting in tomatoes, which is in the nightshade family. But like I mentioned earlier, tomatoes also are very warm weather plants. And so once we start getting into the September, October time period, we might want to start thinking of cool weather plants again. And so let's plant something that's not lettuce. What might that be? Maybe the beets. Now, how did I know which of those plants might be cool weather and warm weather? And got another table for you. There we go. You can see here certain last spring frost, first fall frost, and then you see a bunch of X's and O's. And X is where you might plant that crop, and O is where you might harvest it. So if you go down to one of the very first ones that you see with X's, and it's showing you March 15 or March 5, there's your beets, planting the beets where the X's are up until just about mid-April. And then you would harvest in the June time frame. Well, then what do you plant if you just pulled all your beets out? Well, you could plant another crop of beets, but here we had just talked about don't necessarily plant the same family or definitely the same crop in the same spot because you're going to deplete those nutrients that a beet would like. That's when you could jump to another one of the X's. Like if you go down the row and what's some of the next X's? We have carrots. And basically go along those lines, because then you would see carrots basically would stop at about August and you could plant something new again. And of course, this is a much longer list. If you pull up this document that's available from Virginia Tech at this web address right here, because you can see that I only listed here A through E. All right. And so how do we, and why would we want to look at some of these tools? Here's two very different size gardens. My garden on the left, Jan's garden, which is really tiny, only 3 foot by 6 foot, in comparison to my nephew Dan's yard, which he dug up his entire backyard. So you can see only my little yard doesn't even take up, gosh, he maybe has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2 more beds. I would tend to put my compost into my yard at the beginning of the season, turn it over, and you can see I can only plant maybe about 6 tomatoes, and then what? I probably might not have a whole nother crew of compost ready to put in there because, well, I'm a single person, and that's why I only have a 3 by 6 foot little plot here. But my nephew Dan can actually leave one of those entire lengths fallow, growing something like alfalfa that would add nitrogen back to the soil, and just leave it what we would call fallow, basically not getting a crop out of it, and focus on one of the other plots that he has there. And then he could turn the alfalfa under when he's ready to do the next thing in that alfalfa bed. But for me, I'm going to have to probably disturb one set of plants when I start digging in another set. That same document that I showed earlier has one of those charts that shows how much space you would need for each plant. So along with those web addresses that I showed you, here's some more resources. Everything from what tools can help the backyard vegetable grower, planting the vegetable garden, soil sampling. And why would you want to soil sample? Because after you've planted for a while, you want to find out what nutrients you need to put back into the soil, what fertilizers to use. And master gardeners are known for giving you soil sample kits that you can send in to Virginia Tech and have them tell you what nutrients are missing from your soil. And there's several others there, including information about if you have a garden as large as my nephew's and can actually put one of those plots just fallow with green manure growing for a while. And that's the little discussion I have prepared for this week.
That was great. Thank you for all that. So does anyone have any questions? I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
So at what point, so like come August, September, am I better just to take everything out of my garden and then, like, I kind of had a hard time following exactly everything, but do I just, like, if I want to just plant a cover crop, so like the alfalfa, just so I don't have to deal with that, is that something I can do if I just take everything up in like September and then just let it be?
If it's one of those things that you harvested everything by September.
Okay, so that would be the thing, is depending on whatever.
Well, and then other things that would certainly be a different discussion would be if the plants that you had in there were healthy, you could probably turn them under and have them make their own compost in the same plot. But if you had some fungus on the plants, you might want to pull out that fungus part and throw it away so that you don't recontaminate the soil and leave the fungus there to eat your next crop.
Okay. And by turnover, do you mean like
dig it in?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any more questions?
Great presentation, Jan. This is Susan McCracken. Any chance you're willing to share your PowerPoint and speaker notes?
Yeah, in fact, I was going to write my speaker notes into a little article for our website.